Lieutenant Commander Dominic Reed rubbed his tired eyes as he reviewed the latest diplomatic protocols. 3 months into this joint mission aboard the Unity Ark, and he still found himself puzzling over the nuances of interspecies communication. As the human representative to the Galactic Diplomatic Corps, he couldn't afford mistakes. "Lieutenant Commander, may I enter?" The melodic voice from his doorway belonged to Liaison Neva Thalrin, the Virilan diplomat assigned as his counterpart. "Please, come in," Dominic said, gesturing to the chair opposite his desk. Neva glided into the room with characteristic grace. Her violet skin seemed to shimmer under the cabin lights, complementing her flowing silver hair that cascaded down her shoulders. But it was her eyes, large, luminous blue orbs, that always captured his attention. "I hope I'm not disturbing your rest period," she said, taking the offered seat. She wore the standard white loungewear of the ship's residential quarters, though somehow she made the simple attire look elegant. "Not at all. Just reviewing the cultural exchange materials for tomorrow's meeting." Dominic smiled, noticing how she carefully arranged her data pad on the table. "Something on your mind?" Neva's fingers traced the edge of her data pad. "I have questions about certain human customs. The materials provided seem incomplete." "I'm happy to fill in the gaps," he offered. "It pertains to bonding rituals," she said, her voice dropping slightly. "Virilan diplomatic training covers political and social customs extensively, but personal relationships between species remain understudied." Dominic leaned back, amused. "You mean dating? Courtship?" The translator device at her throat flickered as she searched for words. "Yes. Your cultural documents mention romantic attraction and chemistry frequently, but provide little practical guidance." "That's because there's no universal rule book," Dominic chuckled. "It's mostly about connection, finding someone who makes your heart race." Her eyes widened slightly. "Is cardiac acceleration a prerequisite?" "Figure of speech," he clarified, "though sometimes that happens too." "I see." She made a note on her pad. "And these dates, they serve as evaluation periods?" Dominic couldn't help but laugh. "That sounds clinical. Dating is about enjoying each other's company, learning if you're compatible." "Compatible for?" Her blue eyes met his briefly before darting away. "For whatever comes next. Companionship? Partnership?" He paused, then added with a slight grin, "Sometimes mating, if that's where things lead." The effect was immediate. Neva's violet skin darkened several shades across her cheeks. Her translator beeped erratically as she suddenly stood, nearly knocking over her chair. I believe I understand now," she stammered, gathering her data pad. "Thank you for the clarification, Lieutenant Commander." "Dominic, please. We're off duty." She nodded stiffly, backing toward the door. "Dominic." His name sounded musical in her accent. At the threshold, she hesitated. If someone wished to engage in these customs, would it be considered inappropriate to establish trust before proceeding?" Her vulnerability touched something in him. "Trust should always come first, Neva." Relief softened her features. "Thank you. Good night, Dominic." After she left, Dominic stared at the door, realizing his own heart was beating faster than usual. 3 days after their conversation, Neva still couldn't look directly at Dominic without her skin flushing a deep violet. She focused intently on the holographic star map during the morning briefing, acutely aware of him standing just 2 meters away. "The diplomatic summit on Proxima Station begins in 72 hours, Admiral Jansen announced. "Lieutenant Commander Reed and Liaison Thalrin will represent our joint interests." Neva's head snapped up. She hadn't anticipated being paired with Dominic for such a crucial assignment. "Is there a problem, Liaison?" the Admiral asked, noticing her reaction. "No, Admiral. I'm honored by the assignment," she replied, her translator maintaining perfect composure even as her thoughts scattered. After the briefing, Dominic approached her. "Looks like we'll be working closely together," he said with an easy smile that made her internal temperature regulation system work overtime. Indeed. She clutched her datapad like a shield. "I suggest we review the cultural protocols for the attending species." "Over dinner, perhaps?" When her eyes widened, he quickly added, "In the mess hall. Strictly professional." "That would be efficient," she agreed, ignoring the flutter in her secondary heart. That evening, they claimed a corner table in the nearly empty mess hall. Neva picked at her synthesized Virulon fruits, while Dominic reviewed the delegate list. "The Zentari representatives are particularly sensitive about personal space," he noted, "and the Drolosians consider direct eye contact a challenge." "Yes, I've studied their customs extensively." She hesitated, then asked, "How do humans perceive eye contact?" Dominic looked up, catching her gaze. "It depends on context. Between strangers, it can be threatening or assertive. Between friends..." He held her eyes a moment longer. "It can be a sign of trust. And between potential mates?" The question escaped before her translator could filter it. Dominic's expression softened. "That's when it becomes something else entirely." Neva looked down immediately, her silver hair falling forward to hide her darkening cheeks. "You've been avoiding looking at me since our conversation the other night," he observed gently. "Virellan culture values composure," she explained. "I find myself uncharacteristically reactive in your presence. Is that a bad thing? It's unfamiliar." She arranged her fruit in a perfect geometric pattern. "I was selected for this mission because of my exemplary emotional control." Dominic leaned forward. "Maybe understanding emotions is more valuable than controlling them." "Is that a human perspective?" "It's my perspective." His hand moved across the table, not quite touching hers. "I enjoy seeing the real you beneath the diplomatic training." The ship's communication system interrupted with a sharp tone. "Lieutenant Commander Reed and Liaison Thalrin, report to Conference Room 3 immediately." They arrived to find Admiral Jansen looking grave. "We've received word that the Zentari delegation is threatening to withdraw from the summit. They're claiming cultural insensitivity in the accommodation arrangements." "That would destabilize the entire negotiation," Neva said, alarmed. "Exactly. I need you two to prepare alternative protocols immediately. You have 12 hours. As they hurried to the research center, Dominic said, "So much for our dinner." Despite everything, Neva found herself smiling. Perhaps another time. In the empty research center, surrounded by holographic displays of Zentari cultural data, Neva realized something unsettling. Her inability to maintain composure around Dominic wasn't just embarrassment. It was something far more complicated, something her extensive diplomatic training had never prepared her for. And as he stood beside her, brow furrowed in concentration, she wondered if perhaps her translator had been right not to filter her thoughts after all. The emergency preparations for the Zentari crisis kept Neva and Dominic working through the night. By ship's dawn, fatigue had worn away their professional veneer, leaving something more authentic in its place. "I think we've done it," Dominic said, rubbing his eyes as he reviewed their proposal. They had redesigned the summit's seating arrangements and meeting protocols to accommodate the Zentari's complex spatial requirements without offending the Drolosians. Neva nodded, her silver hair disheveled from the long hours. "The solution respects both hierarchical and territorial needs while maintaining the appearance of equality." "We make a good team," he said, leaning back in his chair. Neva allowed herself to look directly at him. Really look, for the first time in days. The soft lighting of the research center illuminated his features. The determined set of his jaw, the intelligence in his eyes, the slight curl of his hair where he'd run his hands through it repeatedly. "Your ability to understand perspectives outside your own experience is remarkable," she said. Dominic smiled. That's the nicest way anyone's ever told me I'm weird. Her translator beeped in confusion. That was not my intent. I'm joking, he clarified, chuckling. Thank you. I've always been fascinated by the spaces between cultures, the places where we're different but can still connect. Neva hesitated, then admitted, That is why I requested this assignment. My colleagues consider humans unpredictable and emotionally erratic. And what do you think now? I think, she chose her words carefully. I think there is an honesty in your emotional expression that Viralans have sacrificed for stability. Dominic studied her. Is that why you asked about trust? Are Viralan relationships different? We build relationships on shared goals and compatibility assessments, she explained. Emotions are acknowledged but contained, never the foundation. That sounds logical but lonely. The observation struck her deeply. Perhaps, but emotions are dangerous, disruptive. They can be, he agreed. They can also be the most important thing we ever experience. The room felt suddenly smaller, more intimate. The exhaustion of their all-night work session had stripped away her usual defenses. When I'm near you, she confessed quietly, my thoughts become disordered. My physiological responses override my training. She looked down at her hands. I don't understand why my control falters, but only with you. Dominic moved his chair closer. Neva, I think you do understand. You're just afraid to name it. Her eyes met his. Viralan diplomatic code forbids personal entanglements during missions. Is that all I am? An entanglement? No, she whispered. You are much more dangerous than that. The Admiral's voice over the comm system shattered the moment. Read, Thalarin. Report. They presented their solution, received approval, and prepared for the upcoming summit with renewed professional focus. But something had changed between them, an acknowledgement of feelings that couldn't be translated away or contained in diplomatic protocols. That night, after submitting the final arrangements, Dominic walked Neva to her quarters. Thank you. For your assistance? She said formally as they reached her door. Neva. His voice stopped her. What you said earlier, about emotions being dangerous. She turned back to him, her luminous blue eyes reflecting the corridor lights. Some things are worth the risk, he said simply. Before she could respond, he leaned forward and pressed his lips gently against her cheek, a human gesture she had studied but never experienced. As he stepped back, her violet skin darkened with emotion. I need to research this further, she whispered. His smile was warm. I'm happy to help with that research whenever you're ready. The Proxima Station summit proceeded smoothly, largely thanks to Neva and Dominic's careful preparations. Their professional rapport impressed the delegates, though few noticed the charged glances they exchanged across the conference table. During the final reception, Ambassador Korev of Earth pulled Dominic aside. The Unity Arc mission is proving its worth, the ambassador said, nodding toward Neva as she gracefully navigated a conversation with 3 different species. Your partnership with Liaison Thalrin is particularly effective. Thank you, sir. So effective that High Command is considering extending your joint assignment. Korev studied Dominic's expression. Unless you have objections, none whatsoever, Dominic replied, perhaps too quickly. Later, as they boarded the shuttle back to the Unity Arc, Neva noticed his distraction. Was your conversation with the ambassador troubling? The opposite, actually. They may extend our mission. He watched her reaction carefully. How would you feel about that? A subtle smile curved her lips. I would find it satisfactory. Their hands brushed as the shuttle accelerated, and neither pulled away. Back aboard the Unity Arc, Their relationship evolved cautiously. They began taking meals together regularly, discussing everything from interstellar politics to ancient Earth poetry. During off-duty hours, they explored the ship's arboretum, where Neva showed Dominic how to identify plants with properties valued across the galaxy. One evening, as they sat beneath a flowering Terran cherry tree, Dominic reached for her hand. "I've been researching human customs," Neva said, her voice soft as her fingers interlaced with his. "This gesture signifies affection." "Very astute observation," he teased. She hesitated. "Dominic, there's something I should tell you. The Virilan Diplomatic Corps has strict protocols about interspecies relations. Let me guess, they're not fans? They consider it a potential compromise of objectivity." Her blue eyes clouded. "If my superiors learned of my feelings for you, I could be recalled immediately." Dominic frowned. "So we're breaking rules?" "I am." Her second heart fluttered anxiously. "You are not bound by Virelan protocols." "That hardly seems fair." He gently touched her cheek. "What do you want, Neva? Not the diplomat. You." "I want..." She struggled to articulate desires she'd never permitted herself to acknowledge. "I want to understand this connection between us, but I fear the consequences." "For your career?" "For both of us. Humans and Viralans have different lifespans, different biological needs. Even if we overcome professional obstacles, there are practical realities." Dominic was quiet for a moment. "Are you looking for reasons this won't work? Or reasons it might?" The question struck her deeply. Before she could answer, their communicators chimed simultaneously. "All senior officers and diplomatic personnel report to the bridge immediately." They arrived to chaos. Urgent communications flashing across. Screens. Officers moving with purposeful tension. Admiral Jansen's expression was grim. "A rogue faction has attacked the Zentari delegation as they departed Proxima. They're claiming the summit was a betrayal of their interests." He faced Dominic and Neva directly. "You two have the best understanding of all parties involved. We need you to help negotiate a resolution before this escalates into interstellar conflict." As they hurried to the communication center, Dominic caught Neva's arm. "Whatever you decide about us, I'll respect it. But know that for me, you're worth every complication." The intensity in his eyes made her translator stutter, but her hearts understood perfectly. For 2 weeks, Neva and Dominic worked tirelessly to defuse the diplomatic crisis. Their complementary approaches, his intuitive empathy and her meticulous analysis, gradually brought the hostile factions to tentative agreement. On the day the peace accord was signed, Admiral Jansen commended them before the entire crew. "Your collaborative efforts have averted a war. This is exactly why the Unity Arc mission was created." That evening, as celebrations echoed throughout the ship, Neva found herself alone in the observation deck, watching distant stars through the panoramic viewport. The door slid open behind her. "I thought I might find you here," Dominic said, joining her by the window. "Not in a celebratory mood?" "I am reflecting," she replied. The crisis revealed something I hadn't fully appreciated before. "What's that?" "The strength in our differences." She turned to face him. "What we accomplished required both Virilan precision and human intuition. Neither approach alone would have succeeded." Dominic nodded. "That's what makes the Unity Arc special." "It's what makes us special," she corrected softly. His eyes widened slightly. "Does this mean you've made a decision?" "I have." Neva took a deep breath. "I've submitted a formal request to the Virilan Diplomatic Corps proposing a study of long-term interspecies partnerships, using myself as the primary researcher." "That sounds very diplomatic," Dominic said, a smile playing at his lips. "And what does this study entail?" "An indefinite assignment aboard the Unity Arc, working alongside human counterparts." Her violet skin darkened with a blush. One human in particular. Dominic stepped closer. And did you explain to your superiors exactly how thorough this research would be? I emphasized the diplomatic benefits, she said, her eyes meeting his without hesitation for the first time. Some details remain classified. He laughed, the sound warming her like nothing in her diplomatic experience ever had. So what happens now? Neva reached out, placing her hand against his chest to feel his heartbeat. Now I believe it is customary, in human tradition, for me to ask you on a date. Is that so? His hand covered hers. Yes. I have thoroughly researched human courtship rituals. Her voice grew softer, though I may require practical guidance. I'd be happy to help, he murmured, closing the distance between them. Starting with this. Their lips met, tentative at first, then with growing certainty. Neva's translator beeped frantically before shutting down entirely, overwhelmed by the surge of emotions. When they finally separated, she whispered, I believe my translator requires maintenance. Or maybe some things don't need translation, Dominic suggested, his forehead resting against hers. Months later, a new section appeared in the Unity Arc's cultural database. Interspecies Relationship Protocols, authored jointly by Lieutenant Commander Dominic Reed and Senior Liaison Neva Thalrin. The first entry read simply, Begin with trust, the rest will follow. In their private quarters, a Virelin meditation crystal sat beside a photograph of Earth's oceans, different worlds finding harmony in shared space. And when Neva looked into Dominic's eyes now, she no longer looked away. Some languages, they had discovered, were truly universal.